I made a video before the season started talking about 20 players that I think could get traded this upcoming season, and I wanted to check in on how those 20 are doing and see if their stock has went up or their stock has went down. So the first point I'm going to talk about is Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz. It was kind of shocking that he was in trade rumors all offseason. Obviously, Danny Ainge is going to hold his players to a high price tag. He doesn't get moved, but he's inching closer and closer to restricted free agency. He'd be eligible for a new deal at the end of this season, and next year would be the last year on his rookie contract. And Kessler was also going to be a prime bounce back candidate as well. The Jazz would be probably selling at his lowest value, and I think he has been better this year for sure. He's averaging 9.5 points, 2.8 blocks, which is a career high. He's also averaging 10.5 rebounds, which is by far a career high for him, shooting 67% from the field. So I would say Walker Kessler's price has gone up this year based off his play, but as we get closer and closer to him having to earn a second contract, I think his value does go down a little bit. Cam Johnson is an easy stock up guy this year. He may be the best player on the trade market that could realistically be traded, because last year he had a down year for the Brooklyn Nets, and it's good they didn't trade him last offseason because they would be selling low on him, and now I think they can get a much different trade package, and I think it's inevitable that the Nets do blow it up at the deadline because they are winning some games right now, and they want to be a team that is competing for the #1 overall pick to get somebody that could change the direction of this franchise going forward. But Cam has been all-star caliber this year. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists a night. He's shooting 50% from the field, 43% from 3 on 7.5 attempts, and he just looks so much more comfortable in the half court. Last year just seemed like a down year overall for a ton of Brooklyn Nets, but this year I think it's showing why the Nets could get multiple draft picks or a good player and a good draft pick in return for Cam Johnson if they decide to trade him at the deadline. It does help that he's under contract for the next 3 years, including this one, $22.5 million this year, $20 million next year, $22.5 million in 2027. That is definitely a tradable contract in today's NBA, so I think the Nets are very pleased with Cam Johnson being a stock up guy right now. There's been a recurring trend for the first 3 guys because Brandon Ingram had a down year for the Pelicans last year compared to what he did for them in the 2023 season. Feels like we're going back and forth between who is the guy going forward for this team. Is it Zion? Is it Ingram? Is it Zion? Is it Ingram? Right now it would probably be Ingram because Zion is hurt, but Ingram is still an expiring contract. So I would say his stock has been up this year because he is carrying this Pelicans team on his back. With all the injuries the Pelicans have had this season, Ingram has been the one constant player. He's averaging 23 points, 6 rebounds. He's shooting 46% from the field, 36% from 3. So the volume is up, the efficiency is up. He's turning the ball over a ton, but he's got a career high usage. Sometimes his second and third best players have been Brandon Boston and Javonte Green. So I would say overall Brandon Ingram's stock is up, and I am very intrigued to see if the Pelicans are going to move him. So next up we have Mitchell Robinson, who was included in that video, and I'd say his stock is probably neutral right now. It's not up, it's not down because he hasn't played yet this season, and we knew he was going to be out until the new year. Robinson has had some injury concerns in his career. He was healthy in that 2022 season, and the Knicks may need Mitchell Robinson, so I don't know if he's going to get traded because they could also use a wing at the deadline, but I would say Mitch Rob's stock pretty neutral right now. I would say Collin Sexton's stock has been up this year. Also, he is carrying the momentum from his breakout year last year with Utah in the 24 season, which was the best year of his career since 2021, which was the pre-injury and Donovan Mitchell trade. And this year, while the scoring hasn't been there points per game wise because he's dropped from 18.5 points to 16.5 points, the efficiency hasn't changed. Sexton has taken about 2 shots less per game, but he's shooting 46% from 3 on the same volume he had last year from downtown, and last year he shot 39% from 3. And it's still on a nice contract because if you trade for him, you get his value this year at $18 million and next year at $19 million. And for Sexton, as a microwave scorer off the bench, I think his value has gone up. Second to last net we're going to talk about is Dorian Finney-Smith, who's 31 years old, and his stock is also up this year. This has been like the perfect season so far for the Nets, and I'm sure they would like to lose a couple more games, but their veterans have been playing very well, and guys that could have either been buyout candidates or could have gotten maybe a first round pick if you're lucky, or probably been multiple seconds, that value has completely changed this year, and Finney-Smith is no exception. He's averaging 11 points, 4.5 rebounds this year, shooting 46% from the field and 41% from 3. He's still a good defender in this league and is making $14 million this year. And the way he's playing, probably going to opt out of his $15 million player option next year. But I would say it's a stock up for DFS. Now here's a stock down. D'Angelo Russell of the LA Lakers. Now, I kind of feel bad for D'Lo because I was really shocked he didn't opt out of his player option in free agency just to get a longer term deal because he played well last year. D'Angelo Russell surprised me. He exceeded my expectations. This year, though, he's been one of the worst Lakers that have been a staple in the rotation. So far, he's averaging 11 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists, shooting just 38% from the field, 28% from 3. He's getting good looks. They're just not falling. The defense obviously hasn't been there for a little bit for D'Lo. And now that he's in an expiring contract at the end of the year, the Lakers can't really leverage his value whatsoever to get a player better than him. They're going to hope to just use his expiring contract to get, maybe it's a player better than him, but it's got to be someone making a decent amount more money per year that maybe the exchanging team is looking to get off of that money. Yeah, Jordan Clarkson's stock this year also is down, because if Clarkson is not going to be efficient as a scorer, just really operate above average in the half court, he really doesn't have much value out there, because sometimes he's a little too aggressive with the ball in his hands. He's not a great defender. He's 32 years old, and I'm sure the Jazz regret extending him a couple off seasons ago, because Clarkson is owed $14 million this year and $14 million next year. So maybe a team takes on his contract if they're a little bit desperate. But Clarkson this year, he's averaging 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists a night, but he's shooting just 39% from the field and 27% from 3 on 6 attempts a night. But so far this year, Clarkson has definitely lost his value because he's not getting any younger, and he hasn't really improved much from last year, which was a down year to his standards. I would say Malcolm Brogdon's stock is also down this year. It was going to be tough for Washington to trade him at the deadline just because he's making $22 million. It's an expiring contract, and yeah, maybe there could have been like a D'Angelo Russell, Malcolm Brogdon swap, something like that, but at best you were going to get a 2nd round pick. I think the dreams of Washington getting a first for Brogdon are pretty much over, which maybe you thought you could get after the Denny Avdija trade, but that's fine as long as he could be a good mentor for Bub Carrington. He's maybe trending to be more of a buyout candidate though. It looks like he lost a little bit of a step since winning 6th man of the year in 2023 with the Boston Celtics. We're going to talk about the 4th and final Utah Jazz, and that is John Collins. I think his stock has been up this year, and he's probably improved his trade value a ton because he has been arguably the best Jazz this season. Collins is probably having the best year of his career since that 2020 season with the Atlanta Hawks, and since being inserted to the starting lineup on November 12th, over those 7 games, he's shooting 57% from the field, 40% from 3, and is averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds. He's making $26 million this year. He had a $26 million player option next year that I would say everybody thought he was going to opt into, but maybe he opts out of it, gets a longer term deal, and his stock has definitely been up this year for Utah. I think Clint Capela is falling into that Malcolm Brogdon bucket. Maybe the Hawks were going to hope to trade him at some point this season, but I would say his value has been down. I don't think he's been good enough defensively for Atlanta to get a 1st round pick for him, especially since he's making $22 million. So maybe it's trending to a salary dump or maybe a buyout candidate this year. And Capela is still a fine offensive player. He's a good rim runner. He could score inside, 62% from the field, 12 points, 8 rebounds a night. And he's still starting over Onyeka Okongwu. And you could make an argument that Capela has been better than Onyeka this year, but I think it's just time for the Clint Capela experiment to end in Atlanta, and they probably should have traded him a couple years ago. Robert Williams is definitely a weird one because I think production-wise, his value is up, but you're always going to have the concerns with injuries with him. So I'll still say it's an up right now because he was hurt to start off the year. Obviously missed all of last year for the Portland Trailblazers, pretty much after getting a season-ending injury 6 games in. And this year in 18 minutes, he's shooting 71% from the field. He's given them 6 rebounds, over a steal, 2 blocks a night, and averaging just under 10 points per game. And I think could be valuable for a contender to be a backup center because you can't put too much faith into Time Lord as your starting center just because he's always been hurt in his career. So I'll say just because he's looking the best he's had since that 2022 season with the Celtics, I'll say his stock is up. Zach LaVine's stock has to be up this year. Last year, he had a season-ending injury, and this year he has been very efficient for the Chicago Bulls through 15 games. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists a night, 52% from the field, 44% from 3. And LaVine is hitting difficult shots. He's looking great offensively in the half court and is looking the best he's had since that 2023 season for Chicago, where he was really good. And I think LaVine's value was at rock bottom in the offseason. Apparently, they offered him to Golden State for pretty much nothing in return, just matching salary. And Golden State said, we don't want anything to do with LaVine. So I think there could be a team that is desperate at the deadline. I don't know if it's going to be Golden State. Maybe it's one of the LA teams. Maybe it's a Miami or Milwaukee that goes out and gets LaVine because his value is rock bottom in the offseason. It's definitely up now. You just have to take on his $43 million contract this year, $46 million in 2026, and most likely $49 million in 2027. Jimmy Butler is also a very tough one. I'm going to say Jimmy's value hasn't changed because there was a scenario where the Heat were disappointing. He's a free agent at the end of the year, and maybe there was a scenario where he gets traded at the deadline, and hey, that could still happen, but it's a much weaker Eastern Conference, so the Heat are probably going to be in it all year long, and I'm sure they want to make a run with Jimmy on this team. So I'm going to say his stock has been neutral right now because he did not get off to a good start this year, but most Miami Heat players didn't outside of Tyler Hero. Future Hall of Famer we're going to talk about, Chris Paul. Hey, if he gets traded, his value has definitely gone up because he has been great for the San Antonio Spurs, and his value is going up so much, I don't know if San Antonio is going to trade him. He's averaging 11 points this year for San Antonio, 4 rebounds, 8.5 assists, shooting 46% from the field, 38% from 3. He hasn't missed a free throw. He's getting the young guys involved. We're seeing the development from the young wings, guards, and bigs around CP3. They've been a much much better defensive team this year. They've been slightly better offensively this year as well. And like I said, Chris Paul is playing so well that they just may end up keeping him after the deadline because they want to get some playoff experience for their youngins. There was maybe a small chance that the Blazers were able to move Jerami Grant to the Lakers before the season started. Yeah, his stock is plummeting right now because Grant is now 30 years old. He's averaging 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists for one of the worst teams in the NBA, shooting 38% from the field, 34% from 3. I don't think he's as good of a defender as he's been in the past either. And the contract doesn't help much either. $29 million this year, $32 million next year, $34 million in 2027, and has a $36 million player option in 2028. I still have no idea why Portland gave him this contract, even after Damian Lillard requested a trade. I'd say Kyle Kuzma's value has been down this year. He's a stock down guy because we thought Kuzma was inevitable to be traded out of Washington. I know he's been helping as a tank commander this year, but I think he does the Wizards no favor, still being one of the top scoring options on this team because I don't even think he's really mentoring any of the young guys, and he's taking shots away from them as well. And he's also not been a great defender. His value has gone down this year. He's been inefficient. Like I said, bad defense. I don't know if the Wizards are going to be able to move him this year. Jonathan Kuminga's value is probably down as well. He was the main guy that we thought the Warriors could leverage into a bigger name at some point. And I think it's more and more likely that Kuminga does get traded this year because I don't think he gets re-signed by the Warriors in the offseason. He's averaging 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, shooting 44% from the field, 30% from 3, and 61% from the line. The Warriors have been a top 10 offense this year. They're a top team in a loaded Western Conference, and Kuminga is having a down year. Not a good sign for his future in Golden State. Second to last guy we're going to talk about is Dennis Schröder of the Brooklyn Nets. He's another stock up guy. Like I said, it's been a perfect year for Brooklyn trying to trade their veterans. Schröder is averaging 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 6.5 assists. Now, those aren't all-star numbers, but those are very impressive numbers from the 31-year-old point guard. And I thought preseason Schröder was going to be more of a buyout candidate, or maybe you get him for multiple seconds. It's looking like they can get a first-round pick in return for Schröder. And the last player we're going to talk about, stock up. It's kind of shocking how good this year he's been from downtown, and I'm sure Bulls fans are thrilled to see this value go up, and that is Nikola Vučević. Because in the offseason, it seemed like this contract was untradeable. It still has 2 more years remaining at about $20 million per year, but he is shooting 46% from 3 this year, about 18% higher than what he was shooting last year. He's also shooting 58% from the field and averaging 20.5 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Vučević has been a good offensive player this year. The one problem, he's not a good defensive player still. He's not a good rim protector, not a good post defender. So teams that would trade for Vučević really need to put him outside on the perimeter a little bit more, but you can't really do that defensively. But I think his value, along with LaVine, was at the rock bottom stage in the offseason. So I would say it's been up since that. And that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know some other trade candidates that I didn't mention in this video down below. Do you think they've improved their stock or hurt it as a trade piece this season? And if you guys did enjoy, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Subscribe for more content like this all year long, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.